Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. I hope that you're having a wonderful day. If you're new here, my name is Neve and it would mean the world to me if you would stick around. Today's video is a haul because it was my 18th birthday and I got a lot of books, and then I bought myself a lot of books with birthday money. So this is a truly ridiculously large haul. Like, I really feel the need to stress that this is a ridiculously unnecessarily large amount of books to be in one video, but at least half of them are second-hand books that I bought in charity shops or on World of Books, which is a second-hand book website. So I'm not buying all of these books from Amazon or Waterstones. In fact, I think only 2 of the books here at all were from Amazon in the first place, which makes me feel a bit better. Not gonna lie. But yeah, I'm gonna stop rambling because, like I said, ridiculous amount of books. So this is undoubtedly going to be a massive video. And I don't think that I should make it any longer than it absolutely needs to be. So I'm just going to start. The books are not in any particular order. I'm going to see if I can split them maybe into second-hand books and not second-hand books. I think I can manage that. Yeah, okay, I think roughly that's me split them into second-hand and not second-hand. The first book I'm going to show you, I'm going to start with the second-hand ones, was a gift for my friend Anna because she bought it for her and her mum, and Freya wasn't getting read, and as I said in my last video, you might remember, me and BBC Sherlock have been tight recently, so I seemed like the perfect person to gift this to. So the first book is Sherlock Holmes: The Complete Works, the textbook. It's an interesting makeup of a book for sure, but I'm so excited to read all the different Sherlock Holmes stories because I don't think I've read any. Like, I don't think I've ever really consumed Sherlock media other than my mum used to play these games on the DS that I'm sure were Sherlock themed, and I found them so fascinating. But like I'd seen a couple of episodes of Elementary because my dad liked it, but I'd never watched BBC Sherlock. I've not seen the Robert Downey Jr. movies, and I've not read any of the stories, I don't think, which is ridiculous. So I'm so excited to get my teeth into this and just read all the stories, and also the ones that they use as inspiration for the episodes of BBC Sherlock, to see like how they are similar and how they're different. Can't wait. So excited. But it's very heavy, so I have to put it down. Next up we have, I'll continue on the theme of massive books. I bought War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. It's the complete, what does it say on the front? Complete and unabridged version of War and Peace. It is massive, ridiculously massive. I don't think it really dawned on me quite how big this book was until I've seen that the spine of the book bends with the size of it, and then I was like, oh, okay. When I ordered it, I wasn't sure that I had any actual plan to read it. It was more so that it was £2.55 and I was like, I can't not buy War and Peace for £2. That's a given, and I'll get round to it eventually, but something about the challenge of it is enticing me, so I think maybe I'll end up reading it much sooner than I originally thought when I bought it. But yeah, quite excited. I'm excited for how on earth he's managed to fit 500 characters into this book. That's a fascinating idea to me. So, War and Peace. Next up we have, for books that are like not, you know, Sherlock and War and Peace, I will read you the blurbs, but I feel like people at this point sort of unanimously know who Sherlock Holmes is, you know what I mean? But anyway, next up we have Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson, and I think this comes with some of his other short stories as well, but obviously this is the one on the front because it's the one that is like the pop culture phenomenon and will make people buy it. I think also in this is The Merry Men and Markheim and Thrawn Janet. I don't really know anything about the other ones, so that's probably going to be equally as interesting as actually reading Jekyll and Hyde. It dawned on me that I'd never read the story and I thought that I had to change, so I bought it. Next up is a book that I bought because of ASMR Maith. If you are not subscribed to her, do it right now, immediately. She is my favourite YouTuber at the minute. I cannot stop. All of her videos are amazing. She has such a warmth as a person that just makes her such a fantastic ASMR content creator. And to top it all off, she makes lots of book ASMR videos, which are my favourite, so just obsessed with her channel. But I'm pretty sure I've seen this book recommended by her, and that is Hot Milk by Deborah Levy? Not sure. But yeah. And the blurb of this is today I dropped my laptop on the concrete floor of a bar built on the beach. My laptop has all my life in it and knows more about me than anyone else. So what I'm saying is that if it is broken, so am I. And then it's just loads of reviews. So that's interesting. It feels like a good size. Like it's not big. I feel like this is going to be a read I can like fly through and just be like invested in, you know, one of those. So I'm very excited to see what I think about that. Next up we have The Empty Space by Peter Brook, which is a play about theatre. Like it isn't a play, it's just kind of about, I'll read you the blurb. In The Empty Space, groundbreaking director Peter Brook draws on a life in love with the stage to explore the issues facing any theatrical performance. Here he describes important developments in theatre from the last century, as well as smaller scale events, from productions by Stanislavski to the rise of method acting, from Brecht's revolutionary alienation technique to the free-form happenings of the 1960s, and from the different styles of such great Shakespearean actors as John Gielgud and Paul Scofield, to a joyous impromptu performance in the burnt-out shell of the Hamburg Opera just after the war. Passionate, unconventional and fascinating, his book shows how theatre defies rules, builds and shatters illusions, and creates lasting memories for its audience. I am theatreinthebrain.com and this sounded fascinating, so I bought it. Moving on, we have Turtles All the Way Down by John Green. This seemed, by descriptions of other people, a slightly more adult novel by John Green. And now that I'm a bit older and it's been a long time since I've properly read a John Green book, this seemed interesting to me. So the blurb is, 16-year-old Asa is trying to be a good daughter, a good friend and a good student. She's also trying to track down fugitive billionaire Russell Pickett, who has vanished without a trace. Alongside her best and most fearless friend Daisy, Asa sets off in pursuit of the truth and a $100,000 reward. The trail leads them to Pickett's son Davis, a sometime friend of Asa's who might have the clues they need. But as her compulsive thoughts spirals, take an even tighter grip on her mind, Asa finds herself struggling to keep her investigations and her life from falling apart. Just seemed interesting, and I just thought it sounded like a good way to test out what I think about his stuff now that it's been a couple of years since I've read any of it. There you go. Also, the cover for the paperback of Turtles All the Way Down is gorgeous. Like the inverted, it's like cream with like the orange. Anyway, moving on. Next up, I got Much Ado About Nothing by Shakespeare. Next year, I've decided to take a gap here, but next year I'll be starting a drama degree, and I know for a fact that I will need to read or act or analyse or write about Shakespeare. So every time I find a second-hand copy of a Shakespeare play that I don't have, I buy it just because I know I will need it. And I didn't have Much Ado About Nothing, and now I do. There you go. Next up is Howard's End by E.M. Forster. Isn't this the most gorgeous cover of a book ever? I think this is Penguin Classics, like the ones you can collect. But yeah, I got it secondhand. I basically I've owned Maurice by E.M. Forster for ages. And I keep meaning to read it, and I was like, I'm not going to watch the film until I've read Maurice. I'm not going to watch the film, I'm not going to watch the film. And then I caved and watched the film because Rupert Graves, who plays Detective Inspector Lestrade in BBC Sherlock, is in the Maurice film. Him when he's very young is in it. He plays Scudder. And I cannot get Rupert Graves out of my head, so I caved and I watched Maurice because he's in it. And he's very pretty when he's younger, and he's a very talented man, and I just wanted to. So, but the thingy of the story is, Maurice, the film, was directed by this man called James Ivory, and he made like a series of films that were all adaptations of different Ian Forster novels, starting with A Room with a View, which Rupert Graves was also in, and then he did Maurice, and then he did Howard's End, and I decided that I was going to read Howard's End after I finally get round to reading Maurice, which will hopefully be soon. That was a really unnecessary ramble, but I've done it and you've listened, so moving on. Oh, actually, will I read the blurb? I'll read the blurb. Only connect is the idea at the heart of this book. A heartbreaking and provocative tale of three families at the beginning of the 20th century. The rich Wilcoxes, the gentle idealistic Schlegels, and the lower middle class Basts. I'm not very good at pronouncing names today. As the Schlegel sisters tried desperately to help the Basts and educate the close-minded Wilcoxes, the families are drawn together in love, lies and death. Frequently cited as E.M. Forster's finest work, Howard's End brilliantly explores class warfare, conflict and the English character. There you go. It's such a pretty book. Moving on. Oh, that is a pile. We have The Phantom of the Opera by Gaston Leroux. I don't like the musical that much. It's not my style of musical. And I'm not a fan of Andrew Lloyd Webber. But the story is interesting, and I enjoyed the movie because I watched the movie when I was like 12 and hadn't developed critical thinking yet. So I decided I'm going to read the book because the story interests me, and I feel like that means I'll enjoy the book. I could be wrong, but it was 50p in the Chest, Heart and Stroke Scotland charity shop, and I thought if I didn't like it, it would be no harm done. I can go back to a charity shop. Moving on. I need to find something else to say other than moving on. Said it too many times. We have The Master by Colm Twabin. I don't know how you say his name, her name, his name, their name. But the blurb of this is, in The Master, his name captures the exquisite anguish of a man who circulated in the grand parlours and palazzos of Europe, who was astonishingly vibrant and alive in his art, and yet whose attempts at intimacy inevitably failed him and those he tried to love. It is a powerful account of the hazards of putting the life of the mind before the affairs of the heart. It just seemed interesting. Something about the hazards of putting the life of the mind before the affairs of the heart was really interesting to me, and also attempts at intimacy. Something about that phrasing was like, oh, I have to read that. So there you go. It was also from Chest, Heart and Stroke Scotland. Or Heart and Stroke. You know what I'm saying. Okay, last of the second-hand books, and then we'll move on to like gifts and stuff that I got for my birthday that were not second-hand. We have Homework, a memoir of my holiday years by Julie Andrews. I just feel like she's lived a life. She's got a couple of memoirs, and I just think that must mean she's lived a life. And also, like, she clearly has, because she's Julie Andrews, and I want to know about it. So I bought her memoir because that's how I'm going to find out. And it has pictures in it. I love a memoir that has pictures in it. It's like, that was like one of my favourite parts of Patti LuPone's memoir. Just some really cool pictures. But anyway, Julie Andrews. We'll go on to gifts now. So first up we have A Streetcar Named Desire by Tennessee Williams, which is a play and not a book, which is why I started with it, because it's the only play. Fading Southern Belle, Blanche Dubois, depends on the kindness of strangers and is adrift in the modern world. When she arrives to stay with her sister Stella in a crowded, boisterous corner of New Orleans, her delusions of grandeur bring her into conflict with Stella's crude British husband Stanley. Eventually, their violent collision course causes Blanche's fragile sense of identity to crumble, threatening to destroy her sanity and her one chance of happiness. There you go. I have read this since I got it because my birthday was a month ago. It'll be in my roundup, so you'll hear more in my August roundup. Moving on, we have, speaking of Gillian Anderson, A Vision of Fire by Gillian Anderson and Jeff Roven. It's signed. It was a birthday gift for my friend Anna because it's signed, and I love Gillian Anderson. I think she's the most beautiful woman in the world. And I talk about her a lot. So this is a trilogy, I think, or a series. I don't know how many more there is. So if I enjoy it, there's more. It's a big book, like actual size wise, not so much thickness, although it's not small. The daughter of India's ambassador to the United Nations starts speaking in tongues and having violent visions. A young Haitian girl claws at her throat, apparently drowning on dry land. An Iranian boy suddenly sets himself on fire. Called to treat Monique, the ambassador's daughter, renowned child psychologist Caitlin O'Hara is sure the fits have something to do with the recent assassination attempt on her father, a shooting that has escalated nuclear tensions between India and Pakistan. But when teenagers around the world start having similar outbursts, Caitlin is forced to consider a more sinister force at work. Caitlin must now race across the globe to identify the links connecting these bizarre incidents in order to save Monique, whose very soul might be in peril, and perhaps the world. Well, that's heavy. I don't know what, I thought it would be like a murder novel. I thought it'd be like a crime novel, and I was like, oh, that'll be interesting, like who done it? But there's some high stakes there, so that'll be interesting. It's not the kind of genre I usually read, so hopefully it'll introduce me to something new that I enjoy. Next we have, I'm just going to move this thingy. There's so many books. Listen, you only turn 18 once, and I don't drink, so people couldn't buy me alcohol, they bought me books instead. Moving on, we have The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. So excited to read this book. I've seen so many people on Book Talk and BookTube and Instagram, Twitter, literally everywhere talk about this book and her other book. I can't remember what her other book is called, but I want to read that too. The blurb of this is, Stella and Desiree are identical twins, growing up together in a small southern black community, until at age 16 they run away. Years later, everything about their lives is different. Their families, communities, and racial identities. One sister lives with her black daughter in the same southern town she once tried to escape. The other sister secretly passes as white, and her husband knows nothing of her past. Still, separated by many miles and just as many lies, the fates of the twins remain intertwined. What will happen in the next generation when their own daughters' storylines intersect? So excited. I want to read her other book, The Mothers, as well, but this was the one that I found first when I was just wondering about Waterstones killing time, and so I bought it. Next up we have This Poison Heart by Kaylin Byron. I'm going to stick with Byron. I keep saying I'll learn and I Google it and then I forget. I'm going to say Byron. This is not like a sequel to Cinderella is Dead, but it's by the same woman who wrote Cinderella is Dead, which I thoroughly enjoyed and was very surprised by my enjoyment of, considering I am not a fantasy reader, usually at all. But I really enjoyed Cinderella is Dead, so when my brother asked me what I wanted for my birthday, I asked him to get me her other book, because maybe this is my into fantasy that I've been waiting for all along. This book, so it says, to break an ancient curse, she must let her power bloom. Briseis has a gift. She can grow an apple tree from a seed in a heartbeat, and flowers bloom at her touch. And when she inherits an old house, she suddenly has the privacy to test her powers for the first time. But as Bree starts to magic the house's rambling grounds back to life, she finds she has also inherited generations of secrets. In a hidden garden overgrown with the most deadly poisonous plants on earth, a dark legacy lies waiting for her, and Bree's long departed ancestors won't let her rest until she finds it. Something about the sort of coming into age, realising one's worth, like, appeal of this it drew me in, and I'm very excited to read it, because I really like the way the author built the characters in her other novels, so I'm fascinated to see what she does with this protagonist and the surrounding cast of characters. Buzzing, can I wait? Next. I'm trying to be fast because I've already been filming for half an hour and I've got so many more books sitting beside me. Next up we have The Girls I've Been by Tess Sharp. This is another one that's like massive on BookTube and BookTok now, so I put it on my wish list and someone bought me it. So, to understand my story, you first have to know about the girls I've been, and that starts with my delightful con artist mother, because I didn't choose a life of deception, I was born into it. 5 years ago I escaped and became Nora, who has a nice normal life in a nice normal neighbourhood. Until this morning, when I found myself at gunpoint in the middle of a bank heist with my ex-boyfriend and my new girlfriend. Talk about awkward. The first thing I thought was get down. The second thing, we're all going to die because I stopped to buy donuts on the way to the bank. And the third thing, I'm the only one who can get us out of here alive. Because the gunmen have no idea who I really am. That girl has been in hiding for far too long. Interesting. Moving on. We have The Falling in Love montage by Kiara Smith, or is it just Kira? I know someone whose name is pronounced like this and it's Kira, and I know someone whose name is spelled like this and it's Kiara, so I'm going to say Kira. I basically asked for this book because I like romance, and I like sapphic romance, and this is what that is. Saoirse has a simple plan for the long hot summer before uni. Party, watch horror movies and forget all her troubles by kissing girls. Between getting over her ex and dealing with the pain of her mum's illness, Saoirse feels she deserves a break. Enter the scene Ruby. Rom-com fan and optimist, Ruby is the prettiest girl that Saoirse's ever seen. But Saoirse doesn't want to get into another relationship, so Ruby challenges her to try a summer romance with the serious parts left out, just like in the movies. But what happens when the falling in love montage ends? That's interesting. Very excited to read this book. Very, very excited. Romance. Woo! Next up, listen. Yes, I have 2 copies of this book already. This one is shiny. The sequel comes out next month. I permitted myself the nice shiny UK cover of Aristotle and Dante. And I will not defend myself. I just did it because it's my favourite book and it's shiny. Moving on, we have Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo. Sorry, the sticker was covering the author's name. This is Britain as you've never read it. This is Britain as it has never been told. From the top of the country to the bottom, across more than a century of change and growth and struggle and life, Girl, Woman, Other follows 12 very different characters on an entwined journey of discovery. It is future, it is past, it is fiction, it is history. It is a novel about who we are now. Doesn't that just sound absolutely fascinating? I'm so excited to read this book. It's just like, there's something almost provocative about the description that is like drawing me in. I can't wait to find out what the story actually is. Moving on, we have The Passing Playbook by Isaac Fitzsimmons. This is about a trans boy who starts a new school and is going stealth, but then there is a discriminatory law passed that fucks with him playing his favourite sport, and he has to decide whether or not he's going to come out and fight for the right to play or deal with being benched and staying stealth. It's apparently just a really cute romance as well. I'm very excited to read it. Again, it's one of those small books that I feel like I'll just fly through, and it's good to have a bit of that every now and again, especially when I've just bought fucking War and Peace. I'm gonna need a break. Next up, another book talk inspired purchase. We have You and Me on Vacation by Emily Henry. You might know this book by its more common name, which is People We Meet on Vacation. Don't know why they changed that part of it and not the vacation part for the UK title change, but it's apparently an amazing book, so do I really care? No. This is about like best friends who go on holiday every year, but then they fall out and then they go on holiday again to try and make up, I think. I'm not 100% sure, but I've not heard anyone complain about it or have a bad word to say about it, so, and I feel like I needed that. Next up, we have Hani and Ishu's Guide to Fake Dating. This book's just gorgeous. The cover of this book is gorgeous, and I think there's like an aspect of culture in here which I'm very excited to like read about, especially because it seems to be written by a woman who is like that the culture she's writing about, which it'll be really interesting to like get to learn about this culture from someone who has such like a love and like place and do you know what I mean? You know what I mean? My brain is fried. I've read too many blurbs today. Next we have Under the Udala Trees by Chinelo Okparanta. This is another book that I'd seen somewhere on YouTube, and that's why I put it in my wish list, but I cannot for the life of me remember who it was that reviewed this. I just remember being like, oh, I want to read that. This book's set in 1968 during the Nigerian Civil War. I feel like that's already fascinating. And I think it's like enemies to lovers or enemies to friends, but it's like, I don't know, I'm just excited, and the cover's gorgeous, and I'm a sucker for books that people review very highly. I'm a follower, okay? I'm a sheep. Next up is Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. This, I think, again, was an ASMR Maith recommendation. This is set in 1969, and basically, like, people think that this girl committed a murder, but she didn't, and then she has to become a member of society because she kind of lives in the Listen, I'm butchering this, but it's a very long blurb, and I've been talking for a long time. I've not heard a bad thing about this book, so I think that if you're even remotely interested, it's probably a good idea to purchase it and find out for yourself, because I have been instilled with confidence in this book. That's why I bought it, and I think you would be too if you read a review of it. We're down to the last two. First up we have The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. I had to at some point read this book. The time is now. I've actually read it since it came. So the blurb of this is: a girl lives in an out-of-the-way town for 19 years, so poor she can't afford a magazine. And then she gets a scholarship to college and wins a prize here and there and ends up steering New York like her own private car. Only I wasn't steering anything, not even myself. Working in New York one hot summer, Esther Greenwood is on the brink of her future. Yet she's also on the edge of a darkness that makes her world increasingly unreal. In this vivid and unforgettable novel, Esther's visions of the world shimmers and shifts, day-to-day New York living, her crazed men friends, and hot dinner dances. There you go. It's a classic. I think one of those books that everybody feels like they should read at some point. I was definitely of that opinion. Lastly, we're finally at the end. We have Afterlove by Tanya Byrne. This book sounds fascinating, and it's one of the most beautiful books I've ever held. Like, just look at that. Wow, yes, my thoughts precisely. The blurb. Car headlights. The last thing Ash hears is the snap of breaking glass as the windscreen hits her and shatters into a million pieces like stars. But she made it. She's still here. Or is she? This New Year's Eve, Ash gets an invitation from the afterlife she can't decline. To join a clan of fierce girl reapers who take the souls of the city's dead to await their fate. But Ash can't forget her first love, Poppy, and she will do anything to see her again, even if it means they only get a few more days together, dead or alive. It's an interesting blurb. And so far, I've read a little bit of it. It's an interesting book. So fingers crossed it remains that way, because it's such a beautiful book. I would like for it to be a beautiful book, if that makes sense. Okay, there we are. We're done. Finally. I do again feel the need to say that this was a ridiculously, unnecessarily large amount of books for anyone to get in this period of time. And I think book talk particularly makes people feel like they have to own hundreds and hundreds of books, and that is absolutely not the case. In fact, really, you're probably better for the environment if you just get a Kindle, but I can't bring myself to do it. So you don't have to be like me. In fact, it's probably good if you aren't. I am weak-willed and I don't really spend my money on anything else, so there's that. But I hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope that you've seen some books that piqued your fancy, that looked interesting, that you would like to read. Stay tuned if any of them did pique your fancy. Maybe over the next couple of months they'll be in my wrap-ups for the rest of the year and you'll get a proper review of them. If you don't want to wait that long, I completely understand. You can look for other people's reviews. I'm sure there are plenty for all of them. And yeah, I hope that you have a lovely day or night, and I'll see you next week. Bye!